CloudGeometry and Claritype present AI for better BI with the data you already have.
So you've got all of this consistency that you need to deal with, right? So how do you deal with that?
Right. So yeah, one of my favorite stories that I heard was that if most data projects are a week, so at Palantir, when we've done consulting projects together, you think of the whole duration of getting from the beginning to the end as just one sort of notional week. You are doing so much data connection, preparation, and sort of um, what's the word for hydration. You're essentially pulling all that data out of its original systems to turn it into something workable for so long that in that notional week, it's Friday afternoon before you can actually start getting to the answers. So if you set out to assess something about risk, something about a new application development answer, like a set of dashboards, you really have a tiny amount of time to do the interesting work because you've dedicated so much of the week to just pulling the data back together. And so, as we said before, it's just manual. And I think for a long time, that has been just our fate, and we've treated it as an unsolvable problem. And I think there are some innovations now, and I think you and I have built quite a theory around this, and the technology's out there in the world in part, but I think we have a vision there that says where we're going is the automation of that. There are ways to pull data that was disparate into the same higher level knowledge model. Your SAP and your Salesforce are never going to like automatically join together, but they are both going to be able to map to a higher knowledge model, a higher level knowledge model of your business. And so I think we've made some exciting strides there. I have more questions than answers, honestly, about how we're going to ultimately, turn the business into a full AI. But I think finally getting over this data connection and consistency problem is possible.
Well, cool. Well, let's talk about this higher knowledge model. You have a great story about when you went to Europe.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. So, so we at Palantir early days worked on the intelligence community. So there were sort of really interesting data architectures there when the data was very small scale but highly compartmentalized and very important to protect, very important to make secure. And so when we went over to this European law enforcement organization, it was the same focus. But there were other problems there as well, particularly the subpoena problem. So in this case, there'd been a really sad crime. I won't go into too much detail about it, but they had almost given up. A young person had been killed, and they had almost given up. And the last thing they did was a subpoena for all the phone records in the area. And so you and I both know that that results in a tremendous number of data files, tons of
Oh
phone.
yeah.
So we said, this case means a lot. Like we are here, we have these tools for larger databases, but let's apply them to this really important scenario. So we got started. It was roughly 50 different data formats. And as you know, like you'd have to write 50 pieces of code. And we said, all right, we're just going to try to tame this problem at least a little bit so that we can get away with writing 50 pieces of code. So we first said, these are all phone records. So let's create the platonic phone call. Like there's a calling number, there's a callee, there's a place and a time, there's a duration. Now, all these 50 formats describe that in wildly different ways, different languages, different hardware formats on the towers. But let's write half-size pieces of code. Let's write 50 conversions just from this idiosyncratic phone call to our higher level phone call. And so we wrote 50 pieces of code, but half size in the sense that they were really just trying to map to this platonic version. And then at last, once you've overcome the data integration problem, you now have a unified set of these 50 formats. You put them in a GIS tool. And in that case, it was very easy to see that a couple of those numbers did not belong in the area of the crime. And that had gone from a box of 50 files to a very easy law enforcement conclusion by solving the data integration problem. And that kind of gave us the clue here that there was really a way to go from all these idiosyncrasies to the kind of knowledge model, in this case, a single piece of a knowledge model that they were all trying to describe and just varying their format.